That's the West, all right. The land of the heart. Out where the hand clasps a little stronger. Out where the smile dwells a little longer. That's where the West begins. It was the land of the hunter once, when millions of buffalo ranged and fattened and provided food for the Indian tribes. It's the peaceful land of cattle now and horses. Off in the distance, cities and towns. And in the night, the cry of diesels mingling with the howls of a prairie kite. After the Northwest Mounted Police built their fort at the forks of the Bow and the Elbow way back in 1875, people began to stream into the western plains. And it was the good land itself, the breathing space, and the spirit of adventure that kept them there. They worked the plains down below, and their pulses quickened as their eyes turned to the sharp lines of the Rocky Mountains rising through the clear blue of a sunlit sky. They built the West, those early settlers, and they fashioned a jewel, and so preciously set it, that a nation would marvel at its richness, and the world would thrill to its sparkle. The cold, clear mountain streams gave it its name, and they reached back to the ancient Gaelic of Scotland to interpret it. They called it Calgary. It is here for 1 week in early July each year that people gather from all over the globe, not merely to watch, but to take part in what is unquestionably the greatest outdoor show on earth. The friendly spirit of the old Wild West becomes a way of life in Stampede Week. People come from everywhere for an old-time get-together. And just for the sheer fun of it, as many people as possible try to hitch a ride on the old frontier stagecoaches. Flapjacks and bacon made a good breakfast, cooked on the open range half a century ago, and they still do. And to shake them down, why not meet your partner in a good old-fashioned square dance? The symbol of the Calgary Stampede is the white Stetson, the Western garb, and friendship galore. The day's hardly begun, but it's the beginning of the greatest week in your life. So come on, partner, come to the Stampede. Put on your top tie, put on your white hat, and join the parade. Calgary can be pretty crowded when you get about 175,000 people lining the streets. They're packed close to the curb, maybe 15 deep, to see all the basic elements of the Stampede in one solid line that takes an hour and a half to pass any given point. There's never been a queen of the Stampede who hasn't been the most beautiful girl in the entire world. Isn't that the way it should be? I guess 100 different ranches are represented here by cowboys and cowgirls. Some of them, they've got tack and hand-tooled silver-mounted saddles worth a small fortune. The old-time chuck wagon goes modern to provide high action each evening. And there's a $50,000 gold brick in that there car for some lucky ticket holder. Take your choice, neighbor. There's something for everyone. What more can any Western cowfolk, young or old, ask for? And the first Canadians are there, proud of their bearing and conscious of their birthright. Blackfoot, Degan, Sarcee, and Stoney. Names to be remembered and respected, though their days of glory are gone. Here come the pioneers and old-timers to make your heart swell a little bit with pride. Calgary, born of the Scots and named by them. And the Scottish tradition abides. As the Piper of Hamelin led the children, the Pipers of the Highlands lead us to the Stampede ground, the playground of the modern West, where every contest, every demonstration, every exhibition has its roots in Canada's cultural past. In the Indian village, the descendants of Canada's first citizens live as their forefathers lived over a century ago. They chant their ancient chants of worship and supplication, and they dance the primitive dances taught and handed down by generation unto generation. Here you find animals as finely developed as nature and the minds of men together can accomplish. Clydesdale and Percheron, fast disappearing, proud and mighty breeds. Were there ever tractors built which can take their place? Alberta's livestock quality is a yardstick for the whole of North America. That's why a new entry and attendance record is set every Stampede year. And it is part of the reason that this annual extravaganza is known throughout the world. When you win a ribbon at the Calgary exhibition and Stampede, you've won it in competition with the world's best. The other part of the reason is the big rodeo and variety show, where top cowhands from Canada and the United States compete for nearly $100,000 in prize money. Every house is a full house. Some of it is fun, some of it is dead serious. Even the fun of today's Stampede was serious back in the old days. Take this wild cow milking contest. When the roundup cook wanted milk for, say, coffee and flapjacks, he sent a couple of hands off to catch a wild cow and milk her. Well, you can imagine the scrambling that went on before the cowhands returned with the necessary amount of cow. That's just about the same as they run the contest today. Only the first team to get to the judges' stand with an inch or so of milk in the milk bottle gets a prize. And he deserves it. Out on the western ranches, boys become men pretty early. The rodeo champions of today started way back about the age these kids are getting their first professional experience. Boys anywhere up to 15 riding wild steers. No wonder you grow up fast in the West. Sometimes you make a ride, sometimes you don't. But always you gain more in human respect because you tried it. The measure of manhood in the ranch country is not whether you win or lose the game, but how humbly you win it or how well you lose it. There was a time this was called bulldogging, when the bull was grabbed by the horns and wrestled to the ground. Nowadays, it's a rough, tough event, where the cowboy has to take off from a fast-stepping quarter horse and slip a ribbon over one of those wicked-looking horns. It's called steer decorating, and it's time that counts. I guess the bareback bronc riding competition is one of the 2 or 3 events in the Calgary Stampede where you might say the men are separated from the boys. The rules are tough and the horses are rough. And when that horn goes, man, you've had enough. Cowboys come out of the chute with only a small surcingle and one handhold. The horse makes up his own mind on action and direction, with the cowpoke up on top, spurring fore and aft to remind the critter that he's still got a passenger. The 10 seconds from the chute to the horn signifying the end of the ride is a long, rough trip for the best of riders. For some, it's the shortest, highest, and hardest. When you land, that is. Even when you get into the finals of this event, a lot of the time the men are separated from the horses long before the horn is sounded. This is where the cowboy with his pig and string and his highly trained quarter horse work as a team, and one is just as important as the other in roping those pesky calves and getting the ranch brand on them. Roaming free over hundreds of miles of unmarked range, nobody knows who the calf belongs to if he hasn't got a brand. Here's an event so fresh off the workaday ranch world that the contestants feel right at home. They don't have to brand him, just get him tied up according to the rules, that's all. Calgary is the hub of Western Canada's thoroughbred breeding industry, and is one of the 4 principal racing centers in Saskatchewan and Alberta. Every day of the Stampede sees another day of thoroughbred racing with pari-mutuel betting. 8 races are held every afternoon, with many of Canada's top horses and jockeys competing for substantial cash purses, carrying on years of Western tradition in thoroughbred horse racing. In the infield arena, the performers are chosen from the best in the show business world. It's not only the crowd that applauds Jay Sisler, the dogs love him too. The premier one-man event of the Calgary Stampede and a highlight of the whole circuit of North American rodeos is the saddle bronc riding competition. The record shows that Canadians have dominated the sport ever since Guy Weedick inaugurated the Calgary Stampede in 1912. Tom Three Persons won the saddle bronc event that year. He was an Indian from Fort Macleod, Alberta. The contest calls for great skill and daring on the part of the rider. The broncos are rough enough anyway, but the rules make it even tougher. Using only a halter shank for balance, cowhands must come out with their feet in front of the shoulders and spur their mount 5 times forward and 5 times high behind. Perhaps the greatest of the Canadian riders was Pete Knight, who earned top money in 1932, 33, 35, and 36. Knight was an international figure when a horse trampled him to death at a rodeo in Hayward, California in 1937. In the years before and after Knight's reign, other Canadians, among them Herman Linder, who won 22 titles at the Stampede and 4 world titles, have kept Canada in the forefront of the rodeo field. The modern-day heroes are Marty Wood of Bowness, Alberta, and Kenny McLean of Okanagan Falls, British Columbia, both of them world champions. They call it the wild horse race, and wild is the word for it. These outlaws have hardly ever even seen a man, let alone been saddled. They've been brought in raw from the range just for this event. 3 cowboys are turned loose on each horse, and one of them is supposed to end up in the saddle and hang on till he gets to the finish line at the end of the arena. Well, you see what can happen, or do you? When a cowboy takes a sitting on 2,000 pounds of dynamite in the Brahma bull riding contest, anything can happen, and usually does. The idea is to tame a critter whose nature just doesn't allow him to be tamed. The Brahmas come out of the chutes as if their bellies were full of bed springs, and more often than not, they leave a bruised and battered cowboy limping to the rails with a curse on his lips and without a sou to call his own. The clowns are really not clowns at all. They're bullfighters, and they're there to steer the powerful beasts away from the riders who have either been bucked off or who jumped clear at the end of the regulation 8 seconds. If you can't make the bull give up, then you eat for a few days standing up, that's all. The quarter horse is especially bred for this kind of work. It's called the cutting horse competition, and the winner is the man who has the best coordination between himself and his horse. It's partly breeding, partly training, and a lot of know-how. Add beauty to those attributes, and you've got a pretty good description of the cowgirls who fight it out in the International Championships of Barrel Racing. It's an obstacle course, and precision and timing are the key words. The age-old lure of the Midway is an integral part of the Calgary Stampede. Up she goes and down she goes. Ring the bell and win a Cupid doll. Come on and be a mark. It only costs a quarter or 4 bits. Only a sucker would fall for it, but only a sucker would miss it. You've got to save a word when you talk about all the events of the Calgary Stampede. The word is spectacular, and no other contest deserves it as much as the chuck wagon races. There's nothing to equal it in the whole world for excitement and thrills. Around the barrels and out on the track, straining horse flesh in front, outriders close back. The creak of the wagons and the crowd's steady yell. There's $30,000 at stake, so let's give 'em hell. These races originated at the Calgary Stampede in 1923. With 4 wagons to a heat, at the sound of the horn, the outriders load on the 40-pound stove, and the wagons and outriders must circle a figure of 8 around the barrels before heading out on the thrilling half-mile run to the winning post. Outriders must ride right behind their wagons, otherwise penalties are given out by the judges. There are usually 8 races every evening of the week, with the grand finale on Saturday night. The outfit with the lowest aggregate time at the end of the 6-day competition is declared champion. The greatest outdoor show on earth draws the top-flight show people from around the universe. There's a saying amongst the variety performers that you haven't made it until you've played the Calgary Stampede. And those who've been there say you ain't seen nothing till you've seen the Calgary Stampede. Anyhow, there are Calgarians who'll bet that once you've seen it, you'll never forget it. The booms made in Calgary don't come from bombs. The only rockets fired are golden ones to gladden your dreams. That's the West, all right, where there's more of singing and less of sighing, where there's more of giving and less of buying, and a man makes friends without half trying. It's the true West.